Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It's right at 2 o'clock, so I'm going to get us started just to respect time. I forgot to do a slide on kind of just some reminders, but quick reminder, if you have a question, there's a Q&A feature. Be sure to use that feature for us so that we can track the questions and make sure that we answer them all. And so we're going to get started. This shouldn't take us too long, so feel free to ask questions throughout, and when I get to the end, I'm happy to make sure that I've answered all of those. This webinar is specifically focused on our October administration. We wanted to hold this because October is not a normal window for us. We don't typically have exams in October, and so that is just simply due to the transition. So we just kind of wanted to give you an overview of that and answer any questions that you had for that. For those of you I know who may be participating in ASLA's LERE Prep Week that's going on this week, we should be done in time for their 3 o'clock session if you are attending that. So to kick us off, the October administration is Section 4 only. Really, you should have passed Section 1, though we are allowing you to take Section 4 if you haven't passed Section 1. This is really designed for people who are in that predicament that need to pass Section 4 because they've already passed Section 1. One thing to remember, if you are taking Section 4 and have not passed Section 1, you won't be able to take Section 1 in October, and the new section, Construction Documentation and Administration, will have content from both the previous Section 1 and parts of the Section 4. Registration is currently open. It's open through October 9th. The scores will be available in late November. So because the admin is so late in October, the scores won't be available till later in November. So most likely you won't be able to sign up for the December administration unless you're taking a different section. So for those of you who have passed Section 1, I'm sure you're aware at this point that you need to pass Section 4 to get that new Construction Documentation and Administration section, which is why this admin is specifically focused on Section 4 to support you in trying to accomplish that. I just mentioned ASLA's Prep Week. They're doing an LERE Prep Week this week, all virtually. They are offering for candidates who are testing in October, who are trying to finish Section 4, they are offering a free Section 4 prep session. And so it's really focused on kind of last minute prep for Section 4 to give you your best chance at being successful. It is this Thursday from 3 to 4:30. There is no cost. You will need to pre-register though, so make sure that you register for that. This little QR code will take you to that registration link, or you should have also probably gotten an email from us with details on that this past week. As far as this goes, some of the key takeaways is that registration's open now. This is your last chance to take Section 4. It will not be offered after the October administration. Please be sure to remember to attend that ASLA final Section 4 prep session, and then always feel free to call us if you have questions. I do have some slides on December if people are interested or unable to test in October and want me to go through those in December, but let's kind of hit some Q&A and just see what you guys have questions about and how we can help you. If I can get it to pop up, sorry. Oh, somebody deleted it. So I guess now is really just kind of if you have questions about the October admin, how to sign up, where to sign up, if you should be taking it, any of those things specifically for October. If you do have questions about December or the transition, just feel free to chat those in too. I'm happy to address those. Someone asked specifically about study material and specifications. Really, the information that we have specifically for study prep material that's currently available is that recommended reading list. Please bear in mind that the updated recommended reading list, that list is not exhaustive. There's other books that don't make the list that have high quality in preparation. They're just not books that the exam committee specifically uses. But remember that the LERE is the application of knowledge, not the recall of knowledge. And so referencing and studying a specific book and trying to recall specific things from a book really won't help you. It's really the application of that knowledge. So there are other resources. I believe Time Saver Standards came off of the resource list, but that's still a very solid book in prep. ASLA also does offer some prep material. We are working, this won't help for section 4, but we will have practice tests for the new blueprint coming out soon. If you are not a member of ASLA and want access to some sample exam questions that they have to share, and you can't get access to those, you can always reach out to me and I can get you a copy. Those are material that's available. If you're unable to take the exam in October, so if you're unable to take the exam in October, you would just need to transition and your sections to the new blueprint. So there is a transition chart on the website. It kind of shows you where you are and what credit you get for in the new blueprint. And that we encourage you to check that against your records. And so there's a chart there that will kind of walk you through how to transition your credit. The anonymous attendee who says they can't schedule, if you can email me, it's rmoden@clarb.org, or just hit us up at info@clarb.org. We'll help you and we'll see what's going on with your registration. Can I put the QR code? Yes, I can. 1 second. There you are. Yes, and be sure to take that. That's free of charge and a great opportunity to study. Let's see. The exam will be both online and in person, so you can pick just like you would in any other administration. For any of the study stuff, I would definitely encourage you to go to this webinar. It's run by their prep committee, so their landscape architects or other candidates going through the process. So they may have some good resources and recommendations for other prep material outside of CLARB's recommended reading list. The exam 4 retake in October is not free. So the fee is $610, just like it was in August. And if you're probably talking about the free section of construction documentation and administration, that is only offered to candidates starting in December of the new blueprint who passed section 1 prior to October 2022 and were unable to complete section 4 between December 22 and October of 23. So if you're in that situation, you will get emails from us and communications to tell you that. If you're unable to test in October and you want to go ahead and take advantage of that free section and you qualify, registration for that is also open on our website. In terms of section 4, if you don't pass in October, will there be a reduction on your rewrite of the new blueprint? So as I just mentioned, I'll come back to the QR code just in case people need it, but I'm going to jump really quick. I don't have one. I'm sorry. So we have that free construction documentation and administration section. Now remember, in order to qualify for that, you would have had to have passed section 1 prior to the announcement of the transition. So prior to October of 2022, and you would have had to have attempted section 4 at least once during the transition. If you did that, you can kind of look at those qualifications on our website. You will get 1 free attempt of the new construction documentation and administration section. You'll need to use that in either December or April. For the October exam, what's the format? Do we have to go to the testing site? You don't. So you can test at a brick and mortar center, at a PSI center, or online. So it's really your preference. So results for October should be in late November. So the window goes in late October, and so it'll be late November. So most likely you won't be able to sign up for December if you're trying to take your construction section or something like that, if you were waiting on results from October. Now, if you're wanting to take a different section in December and you're wanting to test in October, you can register for both admins now. And so you can plan to do that if you'd like to. The next question says, when registering for the exam, will we register for all 4 exams at the same time? Can we sign up for any exam from the new blueprint without having a completed and approved record? Okay, so there's a lot in that question. So October is just the current Section 4. So if you're registering for October, it's just the current Section 4. That is not the new blueprint. If you're interested in testing in December and testing in the new blueprint, you would sign up for only the sections you want to take in December. So don't sign up for all 4 if you don't want to take all 4. However, you can. If you're interested in taking all 4 sections in December, you're welcome to do that. In terms of completed and approved record, for your council record, you must have an active council record. We need your education information at least entered into there. The rest doesn't have to be completed unless you're in a jurisdiction that requires approval for the LARE and you have not obtained that yet. So if you need to get approval from your jurisdiction for taking the LARE, you would need to compile your record, get that approval, all prior to registering for the exam in December. The next question is about feedback. If someone, for example, got a 627, how close is it they were to passing? 627 is relatively close, roughly within probably a handful of points. But the only feedback we have is what has been provided previously. Someone asked if I knew if the ASLA prep session would be recorded. I'm going to say that I believe they said yes, but I'm not 100% sure. I think their email is lareprep@asla.org maybe. So you can definitely jump on their website and probably just shoot them an email, but my understanding was that they were recording the sessions. One of the questions was just to clarify, if we fail the October test, we lose credit for section 1 and have to retake, correct? So yes, if you do not pass section 4, and you've previously passed section 1, then you would have to take the new construction documentation and administration section. That section is a combination of section 1 content and section 4 content. The next question was whether the testing provider will be providing suitable setup for writing the exams. Yes, they will. If you run into any issues while testing, just reach out to CLARB and we'll work to get those issues resolved. The next question was, will my section 1 exam that I passed be lost, wasted if I don't do the exam in October? If you have passed section 1 and you do not pass section 4, that section 1 exam does not transition to the new blueprint without section 4. So you would have to end up taking construction documentation and administration, because that exam is section 1 and parts of section 4. The only sample tests available are the ones that have been previously available, as I mentioned, through ASLA. If you are not a member of ASLA, just shoot me an email and I can get you those sample questions, those sample exams that they're a PDF. And so you can look at those and kind of give yourself a self-assessment. Someone asked if the ASLA prep session will be a Q&A or a full deep dive into the section 4 materials. I actually haven't seen their full presentation. I do believe their intention is to do kind of an overview and address commonly known issues for candidates, common areas of weakness, and then really focus on the Q&A. So it's going to be a lot of a participatory session, is my understanding. Someone asked if there are any ASLA study groups available to join. I'm not aware of any, though I do see the LARE Google group or something like that, LARE Google group. There's a lot of groups forming on there, so you may want to post this on there, say that you're taking section 4 in October, and try to jump into a group that is preparing for that. Someone asked how long you would have a free attempt for the new construction documentation and administration section. You can either do it in December or in April. Someone asked if they passed section 1 prior to 2012. So it will really just depend on when you passed. So if you passed section 1 prior to 2012, you would have, depending on when you passed, you would have probably passed section A. So section A transitioned to section 1. So you would have credit for section 1. If you have credit for section 1, then as long as you get credit or pass section 4, then you would get credit for construction documentation and administration. When you go that far back, it can get a little bit confusing. So please just reach out to us and we can look at your specific results and support you. Someone asked if the comment feature on the exam for each question gets looked at and considered for each question. Our exam writers do review the comments on the exam. I don't really know what you mean by considered for each question, but if an exam is not, or if an exam question is not performing properly, then that would be addressed. The whiteboard feature will remain the same for the October administration. In terms of discounts for candidates who've already passed section 1, we don't have any discounts available other than that free section or free attempt if you're unsuccessful with section 4. The old exam sections are referenced as A to D and the new exams are 1 to 4. Is that correct? No. So prior to 2012, the exams were A through E. From September 2012 until October 2023, the exams are 1 through 4. Starting in December of 2023, the exams will be, hold on, this: inventory analysis and project management, planning and design, construction documentation and administration, grading, drainage, and stormwater management. There will be no numbers or letters. They will be the full names. Can I explain the free attempt if you don't pass? Yes. So if you passed section 1 or had credit for section 1 prior to October 2022, that date is specific because that was prior to the announcement of the transition. So if you passed the exam prior to the announcement of the transition, you are unable to pass section 4, and you at least attempted to pass section 4 between December of 22 and October of 23, you will get a free attempt at this green exam, the construction documentation and administration, which is made up of a combination of the current section 1 and section 4 content. And you can use that free attempt in either December or in April. You'll be able to register for that online, and you can sign up whenever you're ready for that. Just to make sure I understood correctly, if I try out October section 4 and fail, I could redo in December for free. Yes and no. So if you fail section 4 in October, you will end up needing to take, because you failed section 4, you'll need to take construction documentation and administration and grading and drainage and stormwater management. You'll need to take both of those sections of the new blueprint. And so that free attempt I just mentioned, if you qualified, would be construction documentation and administration would be available in December. But section 4 will not be available after October. Will there be sample exams for practice of the new section formats? Yes, so we are working on practice tests now for all 4 of these new sections of the exam. We hope to have them available in the next few weeks. And so we are diligently working to get those ready. So for the August 2023 exam, we're still actually waiting on a few candidates who had technical issues during the exam and tested in a backup window. So we'll be updating those pass rates as soon as we have those results from those candidates. No, there is no option for paper and pencil unless you had some type of disability, which you would need to apply for that. Other than that, you would be using the built-in whiteboard and calculator tool. make sure I haven't missed any. I saw a couple of chats. I just want to make sure. Okay. Oh, yes, I can put the QR code up one more time. Sorry about that. There we go. Does CLARB offer reimbursement for significant training partner issues when writing? I did not pass and was not able to use the whiteboard. Could hardly track the mouse too. If you had an issue during testing, you need to submit that to CLARB and we'll have that investigated. Well, that's all I have today, but you have my time. So if there's any other questions, I don't have a disability, but find using the whiteboard during testing very difficult. When I tried to look closer at the screen, the proctor said I was violating policy. Well, the whiteboard, without a disability, the whiteboard's the feature that you have to use. If you are trying to look close, the whiteboard is adjustable in size. You can play with it during our demo exam. If you would like to do that, you can adjust the size of the whiteboard if you need to. If you're having difficulty seeing the screen, I'm assuming you're testing at home. I would encourage maybe trying to get a larger monitor if that's an option, or you can always test at a test center. Right. Any other slides I can throw back up for you guys? Any other questions we can answer? And again, if you are planning to test in December, we'll kind of have a presentation on Friday for that. But these are both being recorded and will be posted on our website. Someone asked if the test can be taken at home. Yes, so the test can now be taken online. So that can be at your home or office. You'll just need to make sure that you have the appropriate setup to do that. Make sure that you have a computer that you can run the program on. Make sure that you have a quiet, private place that it can be clean and clear of clutter. That you can download any necessary test driver software, that you have supportive internet, and that you wouldn't be disrupted. So if you're going to have, family coming in and out or a roommate coming in and out, that's not going to be conducive. But yes, you can test at home. But when you're scheduling, just a reminder, it is 24 hours a day. So be sure to select the correct AM or PM. Make sure you don't schedule for 1 a.m. if you don't want to take it at 1 a.m. Pencil and paper, yes, is a special accommodation. So you would have to have some type of disability that prohibited you from using the digital whiteboard or calculator. Someone asked about the change to Section 3 design. So there is minimal adjustments to Section 3. There is some content that is moved around. You can see that on the detailed blueprint on our website, but it wasn't a large percentage. So it has seen very minimal change. If there are 70 scored items and a 650 is a pass, can you please give us an idea of how many questions a 600 would be from 650? I actually can't. So it's a scaled score. And so that would obviously vary based on the cut. And so the cut is scaled to 650, and depending on how that scale works would determine how many questions you're away. So one test you might be able to get a 649. And the next test, the highest, you can miss 1 point and get a 640. So it can really just depend. As far as feedback from the new blueprint, with the new blueprint, we will also give you performances based on subdomain. So when you look at the blueprint, there will be little categories underneath, and you will be able to get feedback on how you performed on those individual categories, starting with our December admin. In terms of the break, I understood we could take one. However, we can't review any past questions correct. It is difficult to go 4 hours without using the restroom. My proctor was completely confused by this. So yes, you can take a break. When you select to take the break, you would go to a review screen. And what you'll want to do is review and finalize all the answers of questions you've seen, because you cannot go back to questions that you saw prior to your break. And then when you come back, you'll pick up where you left off, be able to answer all those questions. And when you get to the review screen at the end, you'll be able to go back and review all of the questions that you started after your break. So you want to make sure that you finalize your questions before you launch your break. I have had an issue with the screen lagging when I would hit the next button. Is that normal? I guess I would have to investigate, because I'm not really sure. I mean, I think it's an internet-based exam, so there's going to be some connection, obviously, but I don't know what you mean by lag, or if it was significant. If you have issues during testing, you need to reach out to us so that we can investigate them when they happen. I took section 1 4 years ago. If I pass section 4 in October, how much time do I have to take the other tests? Well, that's going to depend on where you are, but honestly, if you took one 4 years ago, you're probably in a jurisdiction that doesn't have a time limit. So there's no rolling clock. The only issues that you'll run into, if your jurisdiction has a rolling clock, but if you still have credit for section 1 from 4 years ago, my guess is your jurisdiction does not have a rolling clock. And so CLARB does not also have a rolling clock. The only thing you would run into is another transition. We conduct these job task analysis every 5 to 7 years. So the blueprint will be good for at least 5 years, unless the job task analysis, meaning the profession, changes radically and requires us to update the exam sooner. Will it continue to be a scaled cut in the new blueprint? You will still get your scaled score, if that's what you mean. I don't know what you mean by a scaled cut. So if you want to type in maybe a little bit more information, I can try and answer that, but you will still be provided the scaled score following with the new blueprint as well. Can you repeat the equivalency between the prior 2012 versus current? Sure. So let's see. Okay, so A through E is going to be even more confusing. So section A prior to 2012 meets the current section 1. Section B meets the current section 2. Sections C and D meet the current section 3. And sections D and section E meet the current section 4. So hopefully that makes sense. And then if you just want to reach out again, we can try and help you go through that and explain that for you. Did you happen to say that there are still some grades to come in section 4 test in August? Will that adjust pass-fail rate already posted? No. So one person's, okay, so it sounds like you think maybe the exam's graded on a curve, which it's not. So the exam has a minimum cut, and if you achieve that cut, then you pass, regardless of how many people achieve that cut or how many people don't achieve that cut. You could have 100% of the candidates pass, you could have 100% of the candidates fail if nobody meets that cut. The only thing that would be impacted by the scores we're still waiting on is the overall pass rate of the population. So what percentage of candidates passed this August? That will be impacted by the results of the score we're still waiting on. But if you've already received your result, that's final. Which jurisdictions have a rolling clock? Has COVID affected this timeline? That is a great question. I actually am not familiar with all the jurisdictions that have a rolling clock, or if those clocks are still in place. The only one I knew of for sure pre-COVID was Massachusetts, but I am not sure if they still have that. If you chat in your jurisdiction, I'm more familiar with the ones that don't. I know most of the ones that don't, and again, the vast majority don't. But I would always recommend that you check with your board as well. California does not. With a scaled score, can people fail in theory if they got an 80% correct on the exam? Or is the exam only scaled to help candidates? For example, does CLARB only try to have, okay. So this is kind of what I was trying to explain earlier. The scaled score is really just to try to help you understand how close you were to the minimal passing score. And so that's all it's intended for. It's to kind of try to communicate to you if we say passing is 650 and you got a 630, well, then you can kind of make the assumption that you were within 1 to 2 points. CLARB doesn't shoot for a target pass rate. The minimal competency is set against a qualification. So try to come up with these analogies that help make sense. For example, if you're running a 5K, okay, and there's 100 people running the 5K, and there's a few ways to kind of assess and award trophies, right? Okay, so one of the ways would be top 10. So that means if it's the top 10, you're competing against those 100 people. And so you just have to be one of the top 10 fastest. If your participation, meaning you just have to finish, well, that just means that you're saying, okay, there's really no minimal competency as long as you can do it, right? What the LARE is saying that a 5K, we believe that a minimally competent runner can run a 5K in, I'm not a runner, so let's say 15 minutes. That seems fast, but we'll just say 15 minutes. So they're saying in order to be a competent runner, you have to run a 5K in 15 minutes. If nobody runs the 5K in 15 minutes, nobody gets a trophy. If everyone does, everyone gets a trophy. The LARE is the same way. So we are assessing your knowledge against a minimum standard. It doesn't matter how well or how poorly anybody else does on the test. It only impacts you against that standard. If you meet the threshold, you pass. If you don't, you don't. So how your peers perform does not impact your results. If you had issues with timing during the exam, any advice? Honestly, I mean, I really think the best advice I can give to people is take the question for what it is. There's all types of scenarios in which you can talk yourself into, you had this one situation when you were doing this type of grading plan and this occurred and it impacted everything. Just take the questions at face value. That's my recommendation. There's other testing tips. It really just depends on kind of how well you do in terms of testing. I found for myself that I take my first answer and that's what I go with. Though I have peers and colleagues who answer and then go back and review it. I never go back and review just because that's the way I take tests. So you kind of, some of this is kind of knowing how you work. I think you can talk yourself into any answer if you really want to, because there's always these if and or buts in your scenarios of work. And so just take the questions at face value and kind of keep going. Let's make sure I don't miss anything. For the practice exams, would you recommend people attempting to write if they're getting 70% or better? Or would you recommend a higher grade on a practice exam for a better chance of passing the LARE? Well, I mean, I guess it probably depends on how good the practice exam you're using is. The one that CLARB's going to develop is only going to be, it's going to be 50 questions. And so, I mean, it should be a broad brush of the information and it should replicate the exam itself. And I would definitely, if you're scoring really poorly on it, I would be concerned. But I mean, I think if you're doing well on the test and you're understanding and you're learning from it, then it's really just kind of how comfortable you feel with the content is kind of my recommendation. For the section 4 in October, you get 4 hours. For the new blueprint, all 4 sections are going to be 3 hours. Someone asked, sorry, how much time was on each section? Let's see. I passed 1, 2, and 3. If I don't pass section 4 in October, I'll have to take 2 new sections instead of 1, but you're only offering 1 a free attempt for section 3 to compensate. But in theory, we have already passed half of its content. So basically, if we fail the free exam, we lose our credit. Okay. Any other questions that I can help you with? Again, definitely don't forget the prep session webinar that's coming up on Thursday. They've got some really good people in there to help you guys. So you can bring all the questions that you have and really kind of get the best use out of that session. Is 594 a low score, or do you think that is feasible gap to close in October? I mean, I struggle to give advice like this, right? So we have scores in the 200 and 300s, so it's definitely not the lowest score, but I would say you are at 594, you're several points from passing. Borderline is really tough, right? Because you're really kind of at that border of how you performed. You're within a handful of points. So, I mean, I really think that if you've passed 1, honestly, I would take your chances. I would do this prep session. I would get in a study group. I would try to prepare, and I would try to do it. That's my personal opinion if it were me. But if you really feel like when you walked out of section 4, you had no idea what was happening and it was definitely difficult, which I've talked to candidates who felt that way, then maybe just take your time and focus on the content and prep for December and take advantage of that free section. That's another option, right? Is that the section 4 prep is going to be similar to prepping for construction documentation administration and grading and drainage in December. So you could always refocus and buy yourself that extra time and take advantage of the free section that's available to you if you qualified. If several questions are flagged or skipped and answered towards the end of the exam, does that impact your score in any way? No, we actually don't know what order you answered the questions in. So it doesn't impact your score as long as you answer the question. I'm going to caveat that with saying, if you go through the whole test, you've seen all the questions, so you can't take a break. So just remember that when someone mentioned timing and making sure you had the right amount of time and doing that kind of stuff. If your strategy is to go through and flag all the questions you don't know the answer to, or skip all the questions you don't know the answer to, the computer will assume you have seen the question. And so when you take a break, you would have to finalize your answer on those. So just keep that in mind. If you go through the whole test, you'll have seen the whole test. And so then you won't be able to take a break. So just remember that. But as far as when you answered it, we don't know if you skipped it or flagged it and answered it at the end. We don't know if you changed your answer. We don't know any of that stuff. Is there any way to see a breakdown of previous exam 4 attempts results as you have planned for the new blueprint? No, there's no additional feedback for the current blueprint available. How do points relate to questions when you say a handful of points? How does that translate? Oh, sorry. Yes, a question is 1 point. So when I say a handful of points, that's a handful of questions. My apologies. So each question on the exam is worth 1 point, which is honestly another strategy, right? So if there's a question that's very difficult for you that you maybe don't do well and it's going to take a lot of time, you could flag it until your break. Just remember, it's only worth 1 point. I would encourage you to at least guess, but they are only worth 1 point. There are no half points. So for an all that apply type of question or a multiple response question, it's either all or nothing. You either get them all right or you don't get them all right. You get 1 point regardless. These have been really great questions. Thank you guys. Please keep them coming in. So if each question is only worth 1 point, how is a 650 making pass score? So the 650, again, it's a scaled score. So like, let's say the test is 100 points. We scale it so that whatever if it's 100 points and you need 60 to pass, let's say we scale it so that 60 equals 650. So it's a scaled score. You're not going to be able to connect it to a 100-point question or 100 test question and know what a 650 is. Like, you're not going to be able to make that math. Again, its only intention is to try to show you just kind of roughly how close you were. So if you're taking it and you get a 450, you're far. You've got a lot of prep to do. Any other slides I can throw up for you guys or anything like that? If your score affected by how long you take to answer specific questions if you finish an exam in time? It is not. No, you can spend the entire time on one question as long as you answer all the others and you meet the minimum cut. We don't look at, there's no timing requirements. You don't get extra points for taking less time. There's no impact to your results based on how long you take to complete the exam or how long you spend on a single question. I did run through all the slides already, so I don't have many other than if you wanted to see details on registering for December. I have a few slides on that. So this is obviously your new blueprint. For December, the key kind of things to remember is that it is the new blueprint. You have your transition details available to you on the website when you log in. Right? Oh, I didn't even update this. Registration open today. We will have practice table, the tests available in September. Scores for December will be available in late February. So they'll actually be delayed because we have to set a new cut. A new blueprint means a new cut. And then the results, when you get that, will include feedback at that subdomain level. So if we go back, to here, like if you take the planning and design section, you'll get feedback on how you performed in the stewardship and design principles, how you performed in master planning, how you performed in schematic design, and how you performed in design development. We just uploaded the new orientation guide, which has kind of a sample of what that'll look like for you. So you can kind of see what you'll get. It'll kind of say you were either proficient in a section, you were just below in a section, or that you were well below proficient in that section. And it'll kind of help guide you as to what areas you should probably focus on. Let's see. I'm going the wrong way. Sorry. But that's basically all of this. I'll go back to this QR code because I know people are trying to grab that. That's basically all the slides we had because we were really focusing on just October and kind of making sure that you understood what was going on for October and those types of stuff. But again, if you have questions specifically about December or the transition, I'm happy to help. Let's see. Yeah, the only thing available is that scaled score. I know that you guys would like to see a breakdown of the scoring system, but the scaled score is kind of what it's going to show you as far as roughly how close you were to passing. If we don't do the October exam, is the December try free, if I understood correctly. If you qualify, and again, I have to say that because there are people who've passed section 1 and don't qualify for the free attempt. So if you qualify for the free attempt, you can do it in either December or April. And so you can do the construction documentation and administration section, which is made up of part of section 1 and some of section 4. So the October section 4 results will be available in late November. So someone asked if they could still take section 4 in October if they didn't pass the last one and if they had not taken section 1 and weren't planning on taking section 1 until the new blueprint. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely take section 4 in October if you want to. Just remember that some of the content you're going to see on the current section 4 will be content on the construction documentation and administration section, which is the quote new one. I'm doing that because it's not really it's not really the new one. But yeah, so I mean, if you really wanted to, if you haven't passed section 1, but you want to attempt section 4 just to get another one done, you're welcome to do that. Just remember that content from the current section 4 in October will be part of the content of the construction documentation and administration section of the new blueprint. So you will see some repeat content. Let's see. So the free construction documentation and administration section is available if you qualify in either December or April. Now, obviously, if you had some type of family emergency, just reach out to us, give us an attempt to look into it and see if there's something we can do. But currently the deadline is to use it by the April 24 administration. Can you attend the ASLA Q&A on the 14th if you're, yes. Yeah, so the ASLA Q&A is free. And you do not have to be an ASLA member. You just have to register this QR code, grab that. If you don't grab that or it's not working for you on your screen or something, just shoot us an email. Or you should have probably gotten it. Hopefully you got an email from us with details on how to register for that, but you do not have to be an ASLA member. ASLA has generously offered to share this for free to try to support candidates through this transition. So I have about 15 minutes. I'm happy to help. And again, if you're doing any of the other LERE Prep Week stuff, I think their session starts at 3 if you're going to attend that. But happy to answer any other questions while we're still here. I appreciate you guys all joining and bringing the questions to us. We're very happy to help. All right. Well, not seeing any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys some time back in your day. If you do think of stuff, just shoot us an email. Again, it's info@clarb.org. I actually do think I have a screen that says, thanks, contact us. Yes. So feel free to shoot us an email, give us a call. We're happy to help you, especially anyone who's got old section A through E. It can get a little bit muddy. So just give us a call and we can kind of walk you through that process. But thanks everyone and have a great afternoon.